Hi, hello. What is happening? It's your girl Michelle M. Trey Hollis here with a very important five-star conversation, and this is a PSA. Um, I need you to ask yourself: would you know how to save someone who is overdosing from drugs? Would you know how to um, where to go to get support for your alcohol um, substance use, or to point the people that you know and love, or maybe are in your care or your charge in some way? Would you know where to point them to get that type of support? It's a very uncomfortable conversation. And I have literally, I've been, I knew that this month is National Overdose Awareness Month. And that's why I decided to come to have this conversation. I decided to have this conversation on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook because it affects everyone. It absolutely affects the workplace. If you don't think that it's affecting your employees, your C-suite level, also leadership, if you don't think it's affecting them either directly as they are someone who may be turning to substance use to cope, or it connected to someone in their family, then you will be, you're not really paying attention to what's going on. And that's okay. I mean, it's easy in today's day and age. We have so much information coming at us all the time that it's very simple and easy to want to just kind of gloss over what's actually right in front of us. Okay. This is something that happens to all of us. It happened to me too. Many times people that are suffering from or engaged in substance use don't even see it as an issue while it's actively affecting the way that they show up, the way that they show up at work, the way that they engage with their colleagues, their employees, their volunteers, etc. These things this is serious. And it's an uncomfortable conversation because because we're fake. I'm just going to put it like it is. People are fake. We're fake, and we don't want to wave a flag saying that we're drowning because it supposedly makes us look weak. Well, nothing makes us look weaker than failing businesses, than a grotesque mishandling of funds, than poor decisions made on behalf of our elected officials, or at least uninformed decisions where people don't have a chance to participate in the conversations because people want to rush things. Everything in this day and age and era wants to be rushed through. And what people are doing is this is an epidemic. People are turning to drugs and alcohol in order to cope. They're doing uppers to burn the candle at both ends. They're drinking to get rid of the stress and the anxiety that they're approaching their work with. All because we all want to pretend like we're in some rush to optimize everything. And everyone wants to put a beautiful facade out and take a beautiful picture, post the perfect circumstances and opportunity on social media, when behind the scenes they are failing miserably and doing a really bad job of it. And it's only a matter of time before the jig is up, and we're seeing that in real time right now. So, I just found out last month when I was I taken a certification to be a peer support recovery specialist. And I'm doing that because I believe that more leaders need to have a safe space to get honest with admitting that it's gone too far. Because most of us, I say us because I'm definitely in that group. Most of us, we leaned on these things, not because we didn't think it was going to get out of control. You don't assume it's going to get out of control, especially when you're someone who actually does care and you're someone who engages regularly with your community, and you want to do your best, and you're pouring out and you want to see people do well, and you give your best at your job, and you are, a part of your church committee, and you're doing your creative pursuits. You're doing so much because you genuinely care and love to be engaged. But the thing is that a lot of people have not been taught how to hold that emotional space, because when you are giving a lot, especially when you're in a giving role, especially if you're nonprofits, people who work in nonprofits, whether it's directly work or volunteer, or whatever, like you're holding a lot of emotional labor. Okay. And so it's hard to not take things personal, especially when you are an empathic person and someone who does care and has emotional intelligence. It's hard to not want to expect the best outcomes for everyone, for your business, for whoever your clients are, or your whoever your clientele or the community that you're serving. You want to see the best outcomes. And so in my experience, what ended up happening was I, was pouring out to all these people because I was working. The job that I had was, how was that already 6 minutes? Man, I know how to talk. The job that I had, I was working, I was doing employment. I was an employment consultant for people with disabilities and other barriers to employment. And I really loved that job. And I loved the people that I got to meet and got to help develop, create job opportunities for them. It was very rewarding. But on the other side of things, I saw that there was a ceiling there, and I couldn't figure out how to turn what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, or, and I was great at that job, but I had other underlying things in my own personal life that caused me to caused a crash and burn. It caused a burnout. I'm still, I'm a musician, and my heart, the same heart I had for helping my clients is the same heart I have for wanting to encourage and brighten up the whole world. So I'm making music and participating in creative pursuits over here at church. I'm getting fed the word in a lot of ways, and then at the same time, I'm volunteering at the church. So that's another responsibility stacked on top of myself. And all these things, and and it's because I'm a naturally giving person. I really am. And I love people. And this is how a lot of people in our businesses, in our communities are. But if you're not taught how to hold those emotions and how to have boundaries and create space for yourself and be intentional and understand that not every season needs to be a full on, all out, you don't have to give yourself in every season of your life, that there's ebbs and flows, and there's times you're going to say no. And then there's times you're going to say yes. And there's times, if you are not taught that, many people end up turning to substances to resolve these issues. And then don't, forget about if you have a personal diagnosis. Okay, so let me read what I actually wrote to say here. And I wrote this, not ChatGPT Tizzle. Thank you. So there's an epidemic happening everywhere, including in the Borderland. People are using drugs and alcohol to escape our reality rather than to engage with one another and create solutions for what is happening in our nation and in our world and in our community, in our companies, in our neighborhoods. I don't blame them for turning to drugs and alcohol when we have not created a healthy, intentional communication system and support system of not just resources, but of engagement. But we are feeling its effects throughout our communities, and we need to stop pretending that this is not an epidemic. In El Paso, there are so many tragic and fatal car accidents and crashes due to substance use, and many of these people are so young. In fact, based on some information through El Paso County, it appears as if, let's see here, in 2026 alone, there's been 404 alcohol-related crashes. It's August. 259 injuries, 13 deaths, and 209 intoxicated drivers involved in crashes. The average BAC is 0.16. So the reason I'm bringing up alcohol too, because National Overdose, like overdose, when people hear the word overdose, we think of, the people, the fentanyl zombies and etc. Overdose happens in a variety of ways, and alcohol related death happens a lot too. And we're seeing this, and we see this here in El Paso. So an overdose, I'm kind of loosening up the idea of what we see as an overdose for this reason, because alcohol is legal. A lot of people in El Paso, especially the young people, do drink a lot. We have so much money coming from El Paso and the Borderland region and going out. Like, why are we not creating more opportunities for kids to, for younger people to have better things to do than to just drink all weekend? And it's not just the responsibility of the government, it's all of our responsibility. In fact, our government is us. Like, if we don't understand, part of El Paso's problem is that we don't understand that the government is us. The less that we engage and that we not just see who's coming out, we need to be putting people in. That's the whole way it should be viewed. It should not be viewed as, let's see who's coming out and let's pick the least of the, people love to use that, the lesser evils. It's like, no, we should be building up people with a leadership mentality, not just, and we should be supporting these people with continuous professional development. I mean, that should be like a baseline requirement, is that these people are getting continued professional development, personal development, spiritual development, healing opportunities, because leading people is hard. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I'm not going to hold you. Leading people is a responsibility, and you leave a lot of that stuff unchecked, you get what we see. Okay. So it's something that has to be a part of it. But that's just what's been reported and documented as, and again, that was just alcohol. Now there's some other information that I find fascinating that I want to share too quickly. People think overdoses, again, we think heroin. And I came as I am like this because I sat here just thinking about having this conversation and trying to get it perfect, because it is an uncomfortable conversation. But at a certain point, I'm like, dude, just have the conversation. We need to not try to be cute having every conversation. That's not helpful. If you're a manager or a supervisor, or somebody at a company, like, you shouldn't, or an employee, you shouldn't feel like you have to look perfect in order to bring something that needs to be made aware of to your organization and to your leadership. And you should not be shut down, and you should not be shutting your employees down if what you hear you don't like. Honestly, the least you like it, the more you need to hear it. And if your response is to fire people or belittle them for bringing something to your awareness, then shame on you. I'm just going to say it out loud. I'm going to say it like that. Yes, like that. Shame on you. Because what are you actually even doing? If you can't take criticism, and especially if you know they're right, and even if you think they're wrong, you should be open to understanding what would make somebody think that way. And it doesn't mean that you have to change anything even. Maybe they're just dead wrong, period. Like, full stop. Fine. But you should be proud that you've created a safe space for someone to be wrong in. That's important. Because if you don't do that, like many of the organizations that, unfortunately, I've just had really bad experiences. I'm going to say it like that, man. And I'm not the only one. In fact, it's like one of those situations where, when I came back here to El Paso and the Borderland, I was warned so much, like, El Paso is this. And I'm like, oh, because I was in a situation where it wasn't like that. I saw what good community leadership and all that could look like. And I enjoyed that. So coming here, I just couldn't believe. I thought, well, just people just had the wrong idea. And now I'm like, damn, we got problems, bro. But the beautiful thing is that where there's problems, that means there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity for people that don't, because like, look, here's the deal. I'm saying this on camera out loud. Most people won't. I've lost too many people in my life. I've lost a lot of people, several people to overdose. I've been in spaces where the president of the company is sitting there doing lines, drugs. I've been in places where it's like, oh, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? You know what I mean? I've been in the dungeon. You know what I mean? You can't really scare me. I don't care how you feel about what I have to say. Now, there have been situations, a lot of times I haven't said anything because I love to just listen to people. And look, I'm one of those people who I can roll with the punch. Like, I know it doesn't matter that much. I might be irritated, but if I put my name on it, I'm going to do a great job. Period. So that's something that you can count on me for. If I am involved and I am hired for the job, I'm going to do an amazing job. Even if I realize halfway through it that what in the hell did I sign up for? I'm going to see the project to the end in excellence. So you can always count on that. And a lot of times that means that the little petty stuff that I literally could like go off on you for, I'm not going to do it because it's just going to delay the progress of the actual performance and the actual like end product. And if it's going to delay that, then I'll just let you think you winning, but trust me, you're not. So that's true, you know. But the point is that if the reason I said that is that if I'm feeling like that and I actually know better and my worldview and my worldview of what's possible is so big that I know that this little thing it's not that big, so you can have it. That's my response. But do you know what most people's response here is to shut down and not ever participate again. And that makes me angry. That makes me angry because there's great people here with a wonderful heart, with talent and creativity outside the wazoo. And guess what? They don't want to do it. They don't want to do anything with it. They don't want to do anything with it because they get discouraged by being around leaders who suck. Okay, so let me just say it like that. Now, why is all this important? Because people wonder why people decide to drink and do drugs as their main thing around here. It's an epidemic, and it's for a reason, because people do not trust and believe and look up to our leadership. I mean, you see it happening all over the place here. And if people feel stuck, a lot of times they're going to try to escape in a different way. And I think that's the saddest thing. I'm so lucky that I got to leave and go to Kentucky and experience in different areas how it feels when people actually believe in you based on really no evidence besides you're enthusiastic and they give you a chance. And because they give you a chance and you create some dope stuff, you start to have that confidence in yourself. So, you know, when I came back to El Paso, I was still in the middle of my substance use. Let me just say that. And I was trying to stop. And it took time, and it takes time, but it's because of some of the places that I'm going to share today, like with the Recovery Alliance of El Paso and Project Vita and their incredible leadership there and their employees who really are about the work, that I was able to plug into somewhere that actually could be helpful. And so I want you to know, whether you're watching this in the Borderland or anywhere else, that there are places that you can find. And the sad part is, and this is the part I hate to have to stress, but just because you have a bad experience in this community, that community, look, I've had bad experiences in like 10 communities, 10 communities in the past And ever since I've been on my healing journey, ever since I've been back in El Paso. Now, not all of them were in El Paso. Some of them were online. And ultimately, the bottom line came down to the fact that people were fake and not about the people in the mission. And it's very clear and obvious that that's the case. Like when I look back, I see that none of them have really accomplished anything near a smidgen of what was possible. And that's important because, and you know, I'm going to get back to the substance use, but this is why it all ties together. Because you can't convince me that people in these spaces were not doing drugs, because the way that, I mean, in some of them I was, you know what I mean? So my responses were shady, you know what I mean? So I can completely admit to that. But when you've seen what happens and when you do, you know, get clear and you're not operating out of that fight or flight or out of that, out of your dark shadows, when you're not operating out of your shadows and you really do come to light, what you realize is that for your own health and well-being and mental safety, you have to put yourself first. Like, you know, so if you have a family member or a friend who's struggling with drug abuse or substance use or addiction or anything like that, and you need to prioritize that, and you bring that to whatever community that you're in or even your job or your workplace, and they don't respond well to your need to take care of yourself, take care of yourself anyway. You're never going to go wrong for taking care of yourself, but you will stress yourself out, end up getting in accidents, or end up trying to compensate all of those rejected feelings of support that you didn't receive, and you're going to end up doing drugs instead, or other things that are counterproductive to actually solving the problem. Okay. And so that was definitely a rant. I did not mean to even go in that direction, but it is so intertwined. It's intertwined, man. You can't convince me otherwise. Because if you are doing something that you're miserable in and you don't feel like you have any other options, or I need to stop doing that. I keep clicking my nails too much. If you don't feel like, I keep forgetting that I'm like, recording this, sorry. If you don't feel like you have any other options, if you have a family member, if you have a boss, if you have employees that are suffering from substance abuse, or you're suffering for yourself, there are supports, there are communities that can help you. And I believe those are important communities to plug into, in addition to other communities. But the reason that I'm really big on community is that it is important, but I want you to know that don't let the acceptance of the people within the community dictate your worth either, because it's weird. It gets weird out here, man. It's so weird. It's so hard to find places where you are actually appreciated for your genuine joy, excitement, and enthusiasm for the said community that you're joining. And people get intimidated. They don't want to. You have great ideas, and guess what? Sometimes you have ideas and it's not your business. You don't know why the ideas are not being implemented, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? But people want to elevate you and then not give you the freedom to actually execute your ideas, which I think is just stupid. But it's also, it's ignorant is really what it is. It's ignorant. I think that we could have better leadership here. I think we have a lack of leadership epidemic in El Paso, period. Like, people are good at what they do, but they're not great at leading, delegating, and actually executing on projects. And that's something that could be fixed. And it's important and vital that you have those types of spaces for people in the workplace or at a, nonprofit organization, whatever the case may be. You have to have a place where you actually develop people, and you need to put people in those positions who actually care about developing people. and not just carrying out their own agenda. Because the problem is that when that happens, you discourage people from participating. And that's why we see low numbers and low engagement numbers. When we do bring new people, they don't stay because of the vibe. I'm trying to tell you. And it's not just a vibe, it's because of the way that things are being ran are just not helpful. Okay. So, but in those situations, so think about it. You have those situations, you're going to have employees that are dealing with people with drug and alcohol substance use. And so on top of whatever annoyance or stress that they're receiving at work, they have these other underlying factors that are definitely affecting them. And so even from whether you're an employee or a volunteer and you're recognizing this in the leadership, like those are issues that you have to, that you can begin to recognize as you do your healing work. And you can begin to recognize like, hey, there's something off about this person and situation, and it's not me. So perhaps they're going through something. Now, as an employee, you probably don't have necessarily the, power, the authority, or, you wouldn't necessarily get the respect of bringing something like that to your bosses or the person of authority's attention, which is unfortunate. And that's why, I highly recommend that in workplaces that you change that you shift that mentality, because we are so stuck. So many places that have so much potential don't go anywhere because of these issues. And substance use is a part of it more than people realize, more than even the person that is the bottleneck or causing the issue realizes, because it's frowned upon to be honest with ourselves and to be honest with others and say, hey, I need to take a break. Like, I overcommitted and I really need to reassess some things. So I'm going to need to step back and focus on, things that I need to take care of for myself and my family. Like, we need to normalize that conversation. Everybody don't need to be everything all the time. That's unrealistic. It's unrealistic. And that's something that you have to really get good at doing, at speaking up for yourself and saying no and holding space for people's response to it. And as leaders, we have to get used to not having our way all the time either. And you put so much on one person, they're going to a lot of times use these mechanisms of substance use to try to cope with the stress and pressure that they have. And it doesn't end well for anybody. Okay. And so, bottom line is our society is fake. Our society has been too fake for too long. But guess what? That's why I love Hunter Biden right now. He's coming out and he's on his recovery journey and he's saying the quiet part out loud. We've needed a voice like this in a long time. On the other end, we have our current administration, who a lot of people in that administration are just winging it. And you know what? That should mean that we all should feel confident to just step up and try. That's what that lets me know. Like, you got to learn how to use the information and the things that are happening in the world. You got to learn how to make it work for you instead of against you. Yes, we could be offended and scared and all this, but what it should do is say, hey, if they can get up there and not know what in the world that they're talking about in many cases, and we've seen it happen time and time again, anyone with real eyes and ears, the real eyes, realize. Okay. Any of us that really have a brain and an observation can say, hey, if they can get to these levels of government and completely wing it, I don't want them to fail. I don't want them to fail any more than I want anyone else to fail. They're in charge. They have a lot of power over our future. So why would I want them to fail? But is there failing happening? Yes. And none of us should be afraid to fail if we really are in earnest trying to create a change. That's why I'm having this conversation and really fumbling about it. Because I was like, you know what? I want to do this perfectly. And I have this, vibe I want to give and all that. And I'm like, you know what? I said, I'm not going to deliver this perfectly. It's just going to be a real conversation. We need to have more real conversations that are not scripted so much, that are not chat GPT formatted. Like, we need to actually solve some problems. Okay. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. And this conversation is for any of you who have family, friends, who you've lost to addiction, who are struggling with substance use, and it's affecting you. I see you, man. I see you, and you're important, and so are they. Don't give up on them. Don't give up on them. And at the same time, be at peace knowing that all you can do is have an open door, but it's not your place to, you can't control anybody. And that's in anything. You have to realize that you can't control your workplace. And that no matter what you do, if a job is making you feel like you need to blow smoke or drink or do speed in order to be able to stay up longer and wake up earlier, and if you're having that reaction, it most likely means that either you need to have a conversation with your boss and at least temporarily get some relief, or you just may not be in a field that's sustainable for you. And that means you're going to have to work hard or work extra to find out what a next step can look like. And this is just life, y'all. Life is a continuous journey of growth and expansion, which means that, and especially in the way and how quickly things are moving now, is simply not, we just can't rest in the same way we used to. But just because we can't do it and get ahead in the same way doesn't mean it's not possible, and doesn't mean that we cannot create very meaningful change. It just means that how we go about it gets to be much more intentional. And that's the beauty of having the information and the tools and things that we have now that we didn't have access to before. It's not for everything to just go so fast. Maybe it's to get information quickly, but to be able to spend more time in the creation stage. And then maybe you can use the tools to quickly get information out once it's time for you to do that. Okay. So it's very, you just got to be very, very careful. So that's why I come on here and I talk about I don't talk about my personal issues. There's a lot I could talk about my professional engagements and experiences, but I don't, because I've realized that that's a healing in me that gets to happen. I get to ask myself, how did you get here again? How did you get here? You know what I mean? How did you get here? And why? And that's my own personal journey to understand. I don't blame people for being themselves. I've learned a long time ago that that's really pointless. Like I thank them for being themselves. And in most cases, I find out in all cases, I found out before I've really invested too much of my life. I mean, I've learned lessons. And now that I'm growing into a stage where I'm actually going to be in real, true legal partnership and business with people, all of those lessons were not for naught, including my drug, my substance use journey. Because I realized that people are beyond that. people that are doing a whole lot of public facing and a whole lot of social climbing and a whole lot of interacting, be a whole lot of effed up on substances. I've seen it. And guess what? It's a reality. I'm not going to hide from it, but I'm also not here to judge, nor am I here to suspect anything. But I am here to understand that not everyone has support. Not everyone wants to keep living like that. Some people just don't know where to turn. And that's why it's important for us to have these conversations and to say, hey, I've been there too. You see me all over the place. I struggled for a very long time. I was coping. It was, a coping mechanism. I understand that now. I don't need that to cope now. I also understand that I'm going to feel a lot of feelings that never came up before, or that I didn't feel because I was always numbing it with something. And that it's okay to feel awkward. It's okay to feel weird. It's okay to feel offended. It's okay to feel disgusted. It's okay to be angry. And it's also okay in the same breath to be appreciative. And it's okay to choose yourself and to need to choose yourself and to not have to explain to everybody everything that's going on in your personal life, but to take care of yourself, number one, because no one's going to be there for you if you're out on the street because you lost your job because you were stretching yourself a million different ways and you decided to use drugs and alcohol to cope with that. And then you end up effed up out there. No one else is going to care. They won't care then. So if you're, you may as well disappoint them now and keep all the rest of the stuff you actually want rather than lose everything and then disappoint them anyways. And then they don't like you because they're mad at you or they judge you because you crashed out and because you know what I'm saying, because of drugs and alcohol when the whole reason you were doing it was trying to keep up a facade. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So I just want you to know, if you're having a crisis with your family or for yourself, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna talk more about this, but I wanted to talk about this because I have a friend, one of my dearest friends. Her name was Colby, and she died of an overdose of, I think it was fentanyl heroin. And I loved her. She is so beautiful. I mean, she's one of the most beautiful women you'd ever want to meet. I mean, honestly, in every single way. Like, she totally could have been a model. And just a sweetheart, an absolute sweetheart, and just crazy enough for her to be fun to be around without her turning it on me. And I love that, unfortunately, we both were coping with drugs. Her drug of choice was definitely not my drug of choice. Okay. Mine was definitely more on the upper side, but let me show you something. I want to tell, this is another reason this is very important. And this is directly El Paso. Okay. This is very, very interesting. And I did not realize this until I went to Recovery Alliance, because I went to Recovery Alliance because they have a Narcan machine that's free and you can get Narcan. And I decided to get two. And the reason you get two is because you get one, and then if they're non-responsive after a while, I'll read you exactly what it says. Check if you suspect an overdose. Check for a suspected overdose. The person will not wake up or is very sleepy or not breathing well. Yell, wake up, shake the person gently. If the person is not awake, go to step 2. Give first dose in the nose. Hold the nasal spray device with your thumb on the bottom of the plunger. I'll show you what it looks like. Oh, there's 2 in here, I guess. Oh, okay, there's already 2 in there. I didn't know that. So now I have 4. So you hold it like, this is what it is. So you see how it's kind of like this, so you go kind of like this. So it says, hold the nasal spray device with your thumb on the bottom of the plunger. Insert the nozzle into either nostril, plus the plunger firmly to give the first dose. One nasal spray device contains 1 dose. The step 3, call 911 immediately after giving the first dose. Step 4, watch and give. So wait 2 to 3 minutes after the first dose to give the medicine time to work. If the person wakes up, go to step 5. If the person does not wake up, continue to give doses every 2 to 3 minutes until the person wakes up. It is safe to keep giving doses, okay? Step 5, stay. Stay until ambulance arrives, even if the person wakes up. Give another dose if the person becomes very sleepy again. You may need to give all the doses in the pack. Okay, so I went to Recovery Alliance and Project Vita the other day and met with Jamie Bailey, one of the recovery specialists there, the one that I met when I first came back, and has been fantastic in my harm reduction recovery journey. And I've never used Narcan. I was not there when my friend died and when my friend overdosed and died. But I figure, okay, it's free. Here, they're more available now than they were even back then, I think. Like, if you know anyone that uses drugs, if you're afraid that your family member might be on on drugs or whatnot, get you some Narcan. Just get it. Just have it on hand. You don't want to find out when it's too late either. So just in case. If you're going to a festival, if your kids go to festivals and they're in college, man, I really highly recommend that you just go ahead and educate them and let them have the Narcan. And it's not a free, just use the drugs whenever you want and you have the Narcan type thing. It's just like, let somebody, teach people to be the responsible person in the room. It's okay. It's actually a very great place to be. Okay. And so I think that's it. That's it for today. I've been on here longer than I expected, but I just, everything goes together, man. And that's what I wanted to say before I jump off, is that people think that when you think overdose, you're thinking everything. You're thinking fentanyl, heroin, Please understand. Please understand that among the 64 single drug deaths, the leading substances were cocaine, methamphetamine, and fentanyl. Let me say that again for the people in the back. Among the 64 single drug deaths, the leading substances were cocaine, methamphetamine, and fentanyl. Now, in the multiple, and that's the single drug deaths. So heroin, like people out here doing cocaine, stuff like that, it can kill you. I'm, lucky to be alive today. I was a raver back in the day. I think that, no, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say, I think drugs were more pure back then. None of that matters, honestly, although it's probably true. The point is that today, the drugs of today ain't what they used to be. And even if they were what they used to be, but I'm just saying that a lot of them are laced with stuff that you have no idea. It's crazy. It's actually crazy. And the fentanyl deaths have reduced dramatically, and a lot of it is because of the availability of Narcan. So we don't have that for cocaine or for methamphetamines. So it's very important that you have these conversations with your family, and that that we find that you do have Narcan anytime you go, it's good to have some on your person, especially in situations or areas where, it could be more prone to bad actors, like raves, festivals, etc., like house parties, just have them. This is more for college students when I say that. I don't go to house parties like that no more. So, but I'm 45. But that's why I come as I am on here and things like that, because I want the kids to, I want the youth and the kids to relate to me. I want to be able to relate to the youth. I want to be able to relate to the everyday El Pasoan and the everyday Borderlander. And, if you don't know people that have dealt with family members or friends who have overdosed on drugs, it's because they don't trust you and they're not telling you because they think you'll judge them. It's not because it's not happening. So there's one. That could be a reason. The second reason is because you're very blessed and you've just had a beautiful, bubble. You've been in a bubble, and when I say bubble, I think that's great. I mean, I wish I was I did grow up. I did grow up naive, and that did not protect me from eventually going out on my own and finding out a lot of things the hard way, because it wasn't brought to me and talked about in a meaningful way. Avoidance is not a good plan with your family, your friends, or your, and then your employees. You should have these conversations at least once a year, about substance use, substance abuse, whether they're dealing with it directly or they, have a family members or friends. I think these are healthy conversations to open up to your employees, because what you will find is that they will appreciate you for being a safe space for them to be healthy. And then lastly, what are you doing to protect yourself and make sure you're not drinking away your stress or smoking it away or snorting it away or whatever, smoking it up? you know, because how you do one thing is actually how you do everything. And the jig will be up. It will come, you know, the chickens will come home to roost, as they say. So take care of yourself. The more you take care of yourself, the more compassionate you'll be able to be for your employees. And whatever your mission is, that your job is, or your business, like you'll be able to focus on actually serving the people, which ultimately will only be able to result in success when that's your focus. That's how I truly feel about it. So that was an important conversation. If you watched it this long, I hope it was helpful. I just want you to know that you're not alone, and substance use should be a community conversation in all areas of our communities. Um, it's important, and especially with everything happening the way it is now, like it's an easy escape, and it gets you because at first it's actually really fun and you feel excited again about life. You feel like you're open and you're meeting people and da-da-da, and but it quickly declines. And so that's why I wanted to have this conversation, so that we can get healthy. Let's get free, y'all. Peace and blessings. Keep rising and shining.